Gavi, Dani Carvajal, Eder Militao twice, even Rodri, the Ballon d'Or winner. All these star players have suffered ACL injuries in the last 12 months. Yes, football has always been known as a contact sport, but in recent times, things have gotten a lot worse with the number of serious injuries suffered. And today, we are going to discuss how ACL injuries have gone from being the absolute worst luck a player can have to being the biggest villain in today's football. First, let's learn the basics and then we'll explore why it's so common now. What exactly is an ACL tear? What are the most usual causes of this increasingly common injury? Well, the ACLs, or anterior cruciate ligaments, are the main stabilizing ligaments in the knee. They are located in the center of the knee and steady the knee joint by preventing excessive forward movement of the tibia. In essence, they are responsible for keeping those sharp turns, quick stops and dribbles smooth and injury-free. To put it simply, this is one of the most important tissues in the human body. Without it, even the simplest movements like turning or landing after a jump can send you crashing to the ground. And here comes the important question of what happens when the worst news for any footballer becomes reality. An ACL tear occurs when the ligament is stretched beyond its limit, often during non-contact actions such as planting the foot and twisting. The perfect example of this is Gavi's injury last year, when he didn't even have a player around him. He was just controlling a long ball with his chest when he stepped awkwardly and bent his knee painfully. Within minutes, it was clear he had suffered the most serious injury in football. Many people think that the worst injuries in football happen when there is a hard collision between two players. Well, that's not entirely true, because the bumps and kicks do hurt a lot, but only for a while, depending on the force of the impact, of course. Modern medical science has come up with special ice sprays that work instantly, and within a few minutes you won't even feel the blow. Rest assured, however, that they do not work on ACL tears. And yeah, technology and medicine are improving every day, but if you have an ACL injury, you definitely won't be able to play for at least 6 months. In cases where the injury is more serious, involving other tissues such as the meniscus for example, the player is certain to be out for at least a year. But more about the worst ever ACL tears in a minute. The important thing now to remember that the time on the sidelines is not even the worst news. The truth is that even after surgery and months of grueling rehab, some players never get back to their best. For footballers, an ACL tear is not just a physical setback, it's a career-threatening existential crisis. And now the burning question: why do ACL tears seem to be happening more than ever in recent seasons? Well, the answer clearly lies in the evolution of the game itself. Football used to be a much more contact sport. I'm sure you've seen videos of the English football matches in the 1980s and 90s when the most feared defenders in history played. Kicking was also brutal, but as we explained, it is much better to feel extreme pain after a kick than after the bending of a knee or ankle for no apparent reason. On the other hand, in the 2020s, the game has become more tactical, much more direct and faster. The pace of football has changed, with high-intensity sprints and rapid changes of direction becoming the norm. Combine that with tougher fixtures and relentless overloads, and you've got knees begging for mercy. But it's not just about the game. Throw in the quality of the pitch and the modern boot production, and you have the whole equation in front of you. While today's pristine carpet-like surfaces may seem perfect, they are far less forgiving than the muddy, uneven fields of the past. Add to that the new flashy and super cool boots that manufacturers guarantee will give you a better grip, and the risk of being sidelined for months increases enormously. That's why if your foot is too tight on the ground, the torque on your knee increases. But do you know what's the most interesting phenomenon associated with the rise in ACL injuries in recent years? Yes, it may sound like a huge conspiracy, but in fact many experts claim that one of the biggest reasons is the development of medicine and technology in general. Simply put, medical imaging and analysis have advanced to the point where doctors are picking up injuries that they might have overlooked decades ago. So perhaps the important question here isn't are ACL injuries more common, but are we just better at diagnosing them? And indeed, there are specific arguments that these same experts use to support the claim that ACL injuries are not as serious as everyone describes them. According to them, more than half a year to recover from such an injury is above average, while 12 months out is excessive and even unnecessary time of caution and physiotherapy. As you may have noticed with some of your favourite footballers who've recently torn their ACLs, they all recovered within 3 months of the injury, but then had long months of rehab to rebuild their muscles. By modern standards, this has become the norm. If you take the example of Neymar, who was out for over a year with an ACL injury, he recovered, then did rehab, then training on his own, and only joined the group a month or so before his return. I am not saying that I disagree with that approach, but perhaps football in general has become softer right now, and that is reflected in the opinions and reactions to this injury. Whatever the length of the rehabilitation period, however, this is arguably the toughest part of the whole process. The surgery, just the starting whistle, but what follows are months and months of intense rehabilitation which, to be honest, test the players' minds and spirits first, and then their bodies. That's why you often see players returning to the pitch in better shape after an ACL tear. Barcelona's Xavi Hernandez is such an example. In 2006, at the peak of his career, the Barcelona midfielder suffered an ACL injury and missed the entire season, including the Champions League final. He returned just in time for the World Cup, but his early games did not go to plan. But then, in the years that followed, he won literally everything with Spain and Barcelona and joined the list of those great mental players who have defied the odds. So a strong mental attitude is essential when it comes to any serious injury in football, but especially when it involves a torn ACL. Of course, when we're talking about experienced players like Xavi or Zlatan Ibrahimovic, it's not such a big deal. But when speaking of young footballers for whom this can be a devastating end to their careers, then it shocks you. The 17-year-old Barca and Real Madrid talents Marca Bernal and Juan Martinez fall into this category. The duo had been at the heart of their team's pre-season preparations and were expected to form the backbone of Barca and Madrid for years to come. But it remains to be seen how they will come to terms with this devastating blow. Surely neither of them, however, would want to end up like another Real Madrid talent who announced his retirement at the age of 19. After suffering an ACL injury in 2022, Marc Huslon soon suffered a bacterial infection that meant his knees never fully recovered. This is undoubtedly the worst thing for a young footballer to hear. To realise that he will never be able to fulfil his dreams, not even come close. Speaking of Barca and Madrid, they have the worst record in terms of cruciate ligament injuries. In the last 15 months alone, 8 players have had knee surgeries: Thibaut Courtois, Eder Militao, David Alaba, Juan Martinez, Dani Carvajal, and then Militao again, as well as Gavi, Marc Bernal and Marc-Andre ter Stegen. Another thing we can't overlook is the tight schedule. The major epidemic of ACL tears really started to take hold during the 2022-23 season, when the first ever Winter World Cup took place. At that time, the club season started 2 weeks earlier, which shortened the players' summer holidays, and then there was a break at the beginning of November for the World Cup in Qatar. This put a huge strain on the players, with the best of them playing right up until the final days of the tournament. Then, just a week later, they had to return to their clubs to resume the season on schedule. This decision, of course, meant that not only did the club season start earlier, but it also ended later, which had a detrimental effect on the players' physiques. The killing cycle hasn't stopped since that season, and we're seeing even harsher decisions. A few years ago, FIFA decided to change the rules of the Club World Cup so that the top teams from 6 continents would take part, rather than the 32 clubs with the highest coefficients. This, of course, means an extra month or so of football after the end of the club season. Some media outlets have even calculated how this will affect Man City and Real Madrid, the 2 teams with the best chance of qualifying for the Champions League and the new Club World Cup. According to some calculations, if Real Madrid lose to Liverpool at Anfield in the Champions League, which more or less means they will play a playoff from the knockout stages of the tournament, they will be playing every 3 days for the next 5 months. The situation with Manchester City is similar. All in all, whether we're talking about ACL ruptures or any other type of serious injury, The tough schedules really do turn out to be the biggest cause of sidelining. Many argue that leg fatigue has nothing to do with torn ligaments, but in the end, we're really talking about general muscular deterioration. That's why such claims are unfounded. So what do you think? What measures can be taken to prevent or at least minimize such injuries? Feel free to share with us. Also, be sure to click the like and subscribe buttons for more of the same entertaining content. Catch you in the next one.